Hey, what's up, you guys? Does capitalism get you down?
Does the constant pressure to be productive get to you?
Are you tired of being a cog in the machine?
Then we invite you to be part of the revolution against toxic productivity by embracing the useless things.
Welcome to episode 62 of the Very Unimportant People podcast.
Do less.
I'm your host, Lidia, and this week I went to my high school friend, but not really friends, band performance incognito and planned to say hi to him and then chickened out and then left. And then
I'll tell the rest story. Go ahead. Yeah. Go.
Okay.
I'll introduce myself after.
Okay, whatever. That's cool. Yeah. It's episode 62. You probably know us. So anyway, and then after the concert, like I couldn't find him, right? And after the show, we like left, and actually before we left, I feel like maybe this is important to include. Okay. So when we first got there, I really wanted to support. Not only had I bought tickets to the show, but I also went up to the merch booth and I talked to one of the people and I was like, hey, like, can I buy merch for this band? And they were like, oh, we're the other band that's performing tonight. Sorry. And I was like, oh, awkward. So I go over and I ask other woman.
Yes, never.
Yeah. And they were like, you can have a sticker though. And I was like, okay, sick. So I took a sticker, and this is important later, so remember the sticker. Okay. So I go to the other person and I'm like, hey, I want a t-shirt. And she was just like, perfect. I'm their manager. Here's a t-shirt. You're the first person to buy one. Thank you so much for being so blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God. Like I felt so special for supporting, even though it was like in secret, it actually kind of helped a little bit. You know, I was just like, ooh, I'm like that incognito supporter. Deed. Like they think, exactly. It was a good deed. And I felt amazing about it. And I got a t-shirt out of it. So win-win overall. So the first band performs, they're literally amazing, and I can't stop listening to their music. The second band performs, they're also really, really good, and they're called Sun Junkies. And this is important because the next day, I post this Instagram post on Instagram, and I make the title, it's not caption, I title it Sun Junkies. You know, it was me and my friend, we were looking cute. No, it was the caption, but I felt like a caption wouldn't really like complete the vibe, you know. It needed to be kind of a title. So I made it a little fancy. I added some sunshines around it. And this person from my high school, who I went to go see and who I bought the t-shirt off of, like I didn't talk to him or anything. It was really incognito. I was feeling really shy. So he had no idea I was there, or so I thought. So he goes into my Instagram and he tags the Sun Junkies in my Instagram post. And this is a problem because my friend dared me to ask the Sun Junkies lead singer for his phone number. And I did, under the guise that I needed a sticker because he was really cute. So I walked up to him and I was like, hey, you gave me a sticker earlier and I lost it. And I really liked your performance. Can I have another sticker? And can I have your number? And then he said, this is actually my girlfriend right here. And then I said the worst thing you can say in this situation, but I was under so much stress that I can imagine. I was like, oh, it's so nice to meet you, to the girlfriend. I was like, your random boyfriend person is so cute. and I knew how I sounded. I knew that was the wrong thing to say.
Honestly, I think that's fine.
It was a little it was just awkward because I've seen girls on TikTok talk shit about the girl who is like, oh, your boyfriend is so cute.
That sounds harmless to me. That sounds like, I mean, clearly I think the girlfriend knew your intention and the boy knew your intention asking for the number. So I feel like it's not a secret that you think the boyfriend's cute, you know?
Yeah,
I feel like that's just you reacting and being like, good job, girl. Like, yeah, he's cute. I'm a back off now. My bad.
Yeah. And then I think left so quickly. Yeah, and I think the fact that I left pretty much immediately out of shame really helped a lot. Yeah, I was just like, okay, thank you for the sticker. Good job tonight. Bye. Like, doesn't weird that I dip. So then when my high school friend snaked me in the back and tagged the Sun Junkies in the fucking post, I was literally flipping my shit. I was unapologetically angry as fuck, whipping pillows at the fucking so embarrassing. Not only did he tag the Sun Junkies in an absolute embarrassment on my behalf, but I had been caught red-handed going to the show after not wanting to interact with him.
Yep.
So I decide that there's no going back now. He knows I was there. So I messaged him and I was like, hey, you had a really good show And he was just like, I thought I saw you, but I wasn't sure. So I didn't say hi. And I was like, oh, weird. I was looking for you. Like, I didn't see him at all, but he saw me and he didn't come up to me and say hi. So
how did you not see him? Wasn't he on stage playing instruments?
Yeah, I saw him on stage,
Okay,
but like
so
that doesn't mean he saw me, you know? And then he didn't show up after the show. And like I was hanging around because I was asking the Sun Junkies guy for his phone number. Like I was around, you know, I was there, I was chilling. And then I left really quick after that happened because I was so embarrassed. So maybe he came out after that happened. But yeah, it was quite a fucking journey. And honestly, like the whole tagging situation really reminded me of high school, which I think is really funny because he's an acquaintance from high school. So yeah, it was a lot.
That's funny.
Anyways, I'm going to their show in a week and a half. Yeah, it's going to be so fun. It's going to be so great. I love supporting, you know, people's art and people's talent. So yeah, that was that. It was really
That
funny.
was really uncomfortable, but
yeah, it was bad.
I'm glad you made the best of it and you're going back to see their show, and you know what? You're supporting a local artist. So all good things.
Exactly. And honestly, the show was really, really good. Like it was kind of rock music almost, but also indie, and like people were headbanging, and like by the end of the night I was like flipping my hair, just shit like that. I was having an amazing time. It was really great. Yeah. So
cool.
new niche of Toronto culture to experience unlocked. I'm a groupie girl now. I'm a local groupie girl.
Oh yeah, I'm your co-host, Courtney. And this week I had to write 3 separate reference letters for myself from 3 different perspectives.
No.
It was incredibly uncomfortable.
That's so weird.
It was weird. It was an interesting exercise. So basically what happened is I was coerced into applying for a scholarship.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I didn't really want to, but I ended up doing it to please someone else. So I am applying for the scholarship, and you need 2 references for the scholarship. Mm-hmm. In addition to the 2 references, you also need to write like your own cover letter of why you are qualified for the scholarship. So I wrote my cover letter. No problem. You know, I know about myself. I can write about myself. No issue.
Easy.
And then I needed 2 other references, and the timeline was like really tight. So I messaged the one person, and he ended up asking me to write the reference letter because he didn't have much time, and then send it to him, and then he would correct anything that he needed to, sign it, and submit it. Mm-hmm. So that was already kind of an awkward experience to write one reference letter about myself.
Like,
I had to put myself
an amazing employee.
I had to put myself in the mind of this other person and write as if I was them, but like they didn't tell me anything that they thought about me. So I was like, I'm just assuming you like me and you think these things are good about me. So I wrote it, and I literally like sent it to him and wrote in my email. I was like, this was an awkward experience. Please change it all if you need to. But yeah, he ended up liking it, and he submitted it, and he changed some of the wording to be stronger, which was really nice of him. So to be nicer, which was good. And then, so I submitted that, and then I reached out to my other reference, and I was like, hey, it's ready to go for you. And she was like, actually, I have a lot of time commitments right now. Do you mind drafting the letter for me?
Oh,
and I was like,
boy.
So at this point,
I've
already
written
experience. 2, and like I'm really talking about all of the same experience, but I had to somehow find a way to say it differently and to like focus on different things in each of the letters, and then also put myself in 2 different people's headspace. Like one of them is like a professor, and the other one is like the head of like this organization. So I had to try to like write in their language and from their perspective about me.
Wow.
So it was just really awkward.
That's intense.
Super awkward.
Yeah, and super awkward too. Like, oh, that's
the fact
so
that
weird.
I also had to send it to them after.
Yeah,
is
because
the
you're
most
like
awkward
assuming
part.
how they are gonna be talking and how they speak, and like you're basically just like assuming their personality, and like,
and I'm like bragging about
it's really
myself.
Weird. Yeah.
To them, for them. It's weird.
Wow,
I didn't like it.
That's very lazy of them. Like, I'm pretty sure it takes maybe 10 minutes to write a cover or to write a reference letter. Like, I could write you a good reference letter in like 10 minutes. Like, it'd be so easy. I'd be like, yo, Courtney's the best. These people like don't even have 10 minutes to set aside to write a nice little reference letter?
It was over the weekend, so it's like fair enough, you know. They didn't want to be working over the weekend. So I get that, boundaries. But I ended up working over the weekend because of that.
On behalf of
writing
both
myself
people.
3 reference letters.
Damn it.
So yeah. If anyone needs a reference letter written, hit me up. I got lots of practice at this point.
That's a good business idea. Yeah. Seriously, you got lots of practice. You could be like, tell me a little bit about the person whose point of view I will be writing from. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about this, about that. Oh God, that would be insane.
My acting experience. My high school
really
drama
shown.
kid. Yeah, really came in. I
Really
had to get myself in
through
character. I was like, who am I?
Let me be.
What do I like? What do I value?
What is my motivation?
Yes.
What is my backstory? What is my history? Oh, dude, we had to fill out like just the longest things in drama school about our characters, and we had to like make a bunch of shit up for motivation and like why would they say this one sentence, and we had to hand in like 6-page question and answers about our characters. I don't even think it helped that much.
No.
I'm not gonna lie.
I don't think so either. And I literally never used it again.
Yeah, same here.
I mean, until this weekend. I did some character work. And...
I did some character work. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So, yeah, that's us. That's Lidia, and that's Courtney. And we are your hosts.
Sorry, I was jumping into that, but okay.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Oh, we don't stay together anymore, do we? That was like 60
we
episodes
stopped doing that
ago.
Yeah.
I just completely
I think we did it once.
My brain. Okay.
Like, I remember one time, I think it was episode like, it was some sort of like anniversary, and we both said it together, and we were like, oh, that was so cute. Like, we didn't even plan that. And like, we said it together, but we changed the intro a couple times, I think.
Anyways.
That was a little bit of history about our podcast.
A little bit of V.U.P trivia for you guys.
Yeah. What was our original name? Listen to episode 1. Actually, don't listen. I hate it when people do that. When they start from the very beginning.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Start from the top and work. I mean, with Spotify, it organizes it from the top down usually, unless you specifically change the setting. So I'm hoping most people are starting from the most recent and getting to know the current us before,
and then you could work
taking
backwards
on episode number 1.
Yeah, that'd be rough.
Yeah.
Sad. For a long time, that was like one of our most downloaded episodes too, and we were like, no.
No way. One day we should go back and redo episode 1, like redo.
Okay, I like that idea. Yeah, we should do it. That's good. Oh, fuck. My opinion has like changed though about that. People are fluid. It was
horoscopes?
Yeah, I don't even think I have an opinion about it though. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really remember. I was like, horoscopes are real, and you were like, why? And I was like,
I was like, no, they're not.
In the Mesopotamian era.
No.
You're like, I don't get it. Why are they real? And I was like, well, the stars aligned one day. It was so cringe.
And then the next episode, we did research.
Yeah.
We learned our lesson.
Game changer. There was a couple bangers, yeah.
Anyways.
A couple bangers in the first 10. So.
We're having issues, attention issues
focusing today, yeah.
Let's get on track. Go ahead, Lidia, with your depressing opinion.
Okay. Strap in, guys, because this might not be a lot of fun. But you're going to learn so much, so stay tuned. And if you don't want to stay tuned, skip forwards to Courtney's opinion. And mine is just going to be about tourism in the Caribbean. I'm in a class right now about Caribbean tourism, and I took it as an elective, not thinking that it was going to be as difficult as it is, thinking that it was just going to be like a class, a bird course, if you will, like something that will boost the Exactly. Mojitos on the beach. I really thought it was going to be like that. I did not expect to have like these feelings about the Caribbean and about all-inclusive resorts and about like feeling guilty about going to them, and then having like some of that guilt confirmed almost like a little bit, because I feel like a lot of us kind of have that experience where when you go to an all-inclusive resort, you're like, how okay is this? Like, isn't this a
something just
poor
feels
country?
Off.
Something does feel off. So it was I thought I was going to be learning about a bunch of stuff, but instead I learned about how it's kind of low-key slavery. It's European settlers and colonizers reliving that colonial dream. Their countries are in debt, so much debt, so much debt, and they're fucked. And it's so sad. And now the nature is starting to give out on them, and nature is the whole reason that they have tourism. And now tourism is the only industry that exists in the Caribbean. I mean, it's not, but it's the strongest industry. It's the biggest industry. It's what they're basing their entire economy on. And if it fails, then it's just a really bad situation for them to be in. So, I remember the first time I went to an all-inclusive resort. I was in elementary school, and I went to Cuba, and my dad was like talking to the people who were working on the resort about like the issues in Cuba and like the problems that they were having, and was talking about like how poor they were and like how it's affecting them and how it's like specific to this resort and stuff like that. And he was really like involved and interested in like the politics and the economics of what was happening in Cuba at the time, but I was way too young to care. So I was like, okay, whatever. And that was my first experience. And then my second experience at an all-inclusive resort, completely different. In Cuba, we went on like excursions, but the second one that I went to when in high school, we stayed on the resort the entire time. It was bougie. People were just serving us drinks. I was walking around like I fucking owned the place. And like, there was no one fulfilling my dad's role of talking to the staff about the country and about the economy and stuff like that. And so it was adding to the weirdness of the experience to have like just room service and like service all the time, and we didn't leave the resort once. And it was like we went to this place, but we didn't really go to this place. It's like that myth about how like all inclusives, like it doesn't really matter which one you go to because they're all just sun, sand, sea.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird, right?
It's like if you went to an all-inclusive, you didn't really... It's like when you fly to a country and you don't leave the airport, how it doesn't count. That's like going to an all-inclusive. It doesn't really count. Yeah. It's not much of like a cultural experience.
No, it's not. And like people are like, oh yeah, I've been to here, I've been to here, I've been to here, I've been to here. And it's like, but did you really go to that place? Like I've met a lot of people who are like, I've been to Mexico 8 times, and then I went to Cuba 4 times, and then I went to the Dominican Republic 3 times, and I'm going again this summer. And it's like, what did you do in the Dominican Republic?
Mini America? Like...
Yeah, mini America, staying inside these resorts, not leaving the resort once, thinking that you're getting some sort of like crazy cultural experience because you're talking to the resort workers who are paid to be nice to you. Like,
yeah,
it's not really the kind of travel that I prefer anymore.
It's not the vibe.
Stop! It's not the vibe. So tourism really started booming in the Caribbean in the 50s. Flying became cheap. And for the first time, people in the global north, which is kind of us-ish, were hearing about the Caribbean from like British and European travelers. And these British and European travelers would write books and short stories that they released into the newspapers. And this was the first like imagery of the Caribbean tourism. And a lot of this imagery is still kind of present in the ads that we see today. So, for example, the first imagery was like that the Caribbean was untouched and nature was constantly lush. That's the first word that came
to my mind when you said like imagery. I was like, untouched.
Yeah, and it looks like it's like
untouched.
No one lives there, and like it's yours for the taking, and like so their growing season is just all year around. The soil is always fertile, it's always sunny. They would write about the people there, and in the description of the Caribbean people kind of made it seem like they were actually a part of the landscape and a part of the view. So the issue here turned into objectifying Caribbean people into the rest of the landscape and making them a part of the scenery, and they were just observing them instead of like getting to know them and asking about their culture, engaging at all. Instead they were just watching from afar as they like were in this landscape. And the idea kind of became that people in the Caribbean were mentally and emotionally different because of like the sun and because of the wild and untamed nature around them, and that became a part of their personality. And this imagery of this like exotic and fertile place contributed to the idea that like white people change when they go to the Caribbean. And because the environment is like and the heat and the soil and like just the fruit is like constantly there, it just means that like you're allowed to have all hell break loose, and people become hedonists, and people like kind of indulge in like all these kind of desires and fantasies that they might have that like isn't seen as acceptable. But since it's so different in the Caribbean, like nobody judges you, like nobody, like it's fine, they're so different there, like you could just kind of do whatever you want. And the people oh right, okay, so this I'm gonna get a little dark just for like a second. Okay. And then I'm gonna get darker. So
nice.
yeah, maybe I should have put this a little later, but that's okay. And so the idea was that, like nature, the people were fertile and constantly producing fruit and stuff like that. Yeah. So this idea was actually used to justify rape. And rape didn't exist to like slave masters or to people who were like traveling there, I guess, because the comparison is that bee isn't raping the flower by pollinating it. And that's kind of how they viewed the people who were living there, that they were just kind of taking what was available, like pollen, for example, and like they are the bees. And it's like they're just pollinating. Yeah. Super cringe, super fucked up, super gross. And on that note, the first kind of ads about the Caribbean were all about reliving colonialism. You take a cruise, you reenact colonialism. Some of the advertisements literally said, "Come see the Caribbean, how Columbus first did." Talk about Columbus in the fucking ads.
Red flag. It's a red flag, my boy.
Right? And people are saying that this is still present, even if they don't use those words exactly. In the imagery, there's like empty white sand beaches. And those, like, no people anywhere to be seen. So it's interpreted as it's just yours for the taking. And you can go there and you can make your own narrative, and just erases any culture of any of the people who
and like
were
the
already
real lives of people there.
It's just the beach.
Yeah.
It's just an empty beach, as if
someone
the beach
else's
isn't a
beach.
public place.
Yeah.
For everyone to enjoy. And there's also the imagery of Caribbean people happily serving white men and women, looking very welcoming with their like drink in hand and like smile. And this is like a pretty old kind of image from slavery of this like woman, like this topless woman, like serving this man who's like the master or whatever, and she's just a part of the background. She's being totally objectified into the background, and yeah, exactly. And that's kind of her only purpose. And so that's still seen today in the advertisements. And now there's a huge disconnect. Like, we're just kind of like, oh yeah, that's what going to the Caribbean is like. That's what tourism there is. But it stems from slavery. Like, what the fuck?
And like, obviously there's something to be said about if you go to a place, the people from that place are probably going to be working in that place. But I think like the really uncomfy part is A, its roots in colonialism, and B, the fact that like I want to say 90% of the people who go to all-inclusives are white people. Are wealthy white people. Yeah. So it just makes it a little bit more uncomfy.
Yep.
Indefinitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's even like some racism that exists within like the Caribbean. Like, if you're a Black person and you go to a Caribbean resort, it's been reported that people experience like racism. Like, they are asked to get drinks even though they're a guest on the resort, or they are treated completely differently than like if they go with a group of like their white friends or something like that. And they'll be singled out for a security search, or for like asking if they're just like selling something or something like that. So it's pretty bad. It happens in a lot of different scenarios. So some other issues in the Caribbean. As I was saying, tourism is its main income source. 1 in 4 jobs are related to tourism. And everything is imported. So the white sand isn't actually from there. In most places, they have to import the sand from countries that have it. And since a lot of Caribbean places have like brown sand, or the sand isn't super soft, or the beach is rocky, but they have to have this white sand imagery. Otherwise, they believe that tourists like won't want to come there because it's not like it's supposed to be in the ads or in the photos. So they have to import their sand. Not real. All the food is imported. Even though there's like really strong agricultural roots in the Caribbean, and they've completely given up on that kind of side of the industry. And so the cost of importing food and milk from overseas is actually cheaper than it is to buy from their own people. So if you go to the grocery store and you see like mangoes from like Mexico, and then you see mangoes from the Caribbean place that you're staying at, the mangoes from Mexico will be cheaper than the ones that are local and that are locally sourced. So it's pretty much not even giving anyone the opportunity, the already poor country, the opportunity to even grow their own economy because everything is so expensive. And now the agricultural industry is failing too. Even the stones to build the resort are imported. The only thing not imported is the land, obviously, used to make the resorts. But taking over a solid chunk of beach and a solid chunk of land just for tourism has been compared to the sugar cane plantation era.
Interesting.
Bruh. This shit is so fucked. So, the governments of the Caribbean also put the needs of tourists over their own people. For example, a hospital was recently built in the Caribbean just for tourists. Like local people weren't allowed to go to the hospital, just for tourists, and yet healthcare is like inaccessible for a lot of people in the Caribbean.
In Thailand, they have a tourist police. They have like a different police force for. I don't know if it's a different police force or if it's a different telephone line, but there's like a number for tourists to call the police, and there's a number for locals to call the police.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
That is really weird.
I don't know if tourists get better or worse service. I don't know what the situation is there, but I always thought it was like a little strange that there's separate lines. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, that is really weird. It's okay. They probably get treated a lot better than the locals. Like, yeah. So selling land, the government is like selling land for more tourism, while the people who are living in the Caribbean are homeless, or their communities or towns are being destroyed for a resort to get built in its place. And yeah, it's just pretty sad to like imagine living somewhere where your government cares more about the tourists than the people that live there. But the issue is that they're so reliant on tourism for money because they're so deeply in debt from building up tourism that they don't really have a choice but to prioritize the tourists. And critics are even saying that this dependency on like foreign people and on foreign powers is basically a new form of slavery. Next, when you pay your money to go to the resort, let's say you pay like $1,000 for your all-inclusive, the employees barely see any of that money. Most of it goes back to foreign investors or to pay countries who are importing food, marble, sand, chairs, anything. And most of the money that people make from resorts actually come from tips. Yeah. So don't forget to tip. Yeah, and like a lot of the places, like for example, Jamaica is so in debt. I think there's $7 or $8 billion in debt. How the fuck are they even gonna pay that back? Like nobody knows, but they're so in debt from making these resorts that they just literally have no choice but to continue to make money off of tourism. Next, waste management. This one is so sad. It's like extremely underdeveloped, and because the water isn't clean, like I think everybody hears that about going to the Caribbean, like don't drink the water from the tap or whatever. The amount of plastic water bottles being used every day is just huge. It's the entire island plus all of the tourists, and in some places in the Caribbean, the amount of tourists outnumber the amount of locals in a particular season. So they're supporting like twice the amount of people over the entire summer months or whenever the busy months are. And that's twice the amount of plastic water bottles. And yeah, and the water isn't clean because there isn't a proper water waste management system. And one video I watched about the Caribbean was talking about how when you go to the Caribbean, like a lot of tourists don't think about where their bath water is going or where their like toilet flush is going or where anything is going. And the woman who was doing the video, her response was simply that the ocean is very large. I don't know. And the pollution is just they just dump it all into the ocean, and then they're like the water's not clean, and then it's like it's just such a horrible cycle. And now the pollution is causing this huge issue where People are starting to create like ecotourism out of necessity because of this proverb that you can't kill the goose that laid the golden egg, right? So nature was the thing, and the views and the scenery was the thing that made people want to come to the Caribbean in the first place. Yeah. And then once that nature is destroyed, there's not, because of tourism, there's not going to be like any reason to return to the Caribbean, and then they're going to be in an even worse place. Oh my God. It's really sad. It's just such a mess, man. And they have like entire islands just dedicated to like garbage. Like they don't really recycle. They just don't really have like those kinds of systems in place. Like,
yeah. And they don't have the capacity to like build the infrastructure for that. And I feel like if like resorts and tourism companies wanted to like really practice like ethical tourism or whatever, maybe instead of buying all the tourist water bottles, they could invest into local water systems,
into making their water like drinkable, and to be able to have like sewage that actually works instead of just dumping
and is sustainable
everything
over the long term and helps everybody there, not just the wealthy white people that decide to go there.
My professor was saying how a lot of like the government leadership in some of the Caribbean countries, she was from Trinidad, and she was saying how they're like incapable of doing long-term plans or like seeing any long-term effects, because just the way their government is structured, and I guess like historical reasons, they only really are living for the moment and for the now and like how to get out of this current thing, and aren't really thinking long term. And she said that that's like a problem that they've been seeing for a really long time now.
Yeah, I think also if like you're already in a state of disparity, like as a government, it's really hard to like have the capacity to have those long-term goals when you're like, I've got to deal with all the shit that's going on now. Yeah.
It's just too much. It's just way too much. They just have way too many problems. Like no one's going to help them. Like it's so sad. The next thing. And the next thing, and a little bit of a last thing, is the commoditization of culture. So tourists who do not, or who do want to experience some of the local culture, they are actually getting watered down versions of the culture that exists, and it only really exists for the consumption of tourists. And this has caused a pretty big issue within the Caribbean too, where people now feel like they don't really have a culture in like really strong roots, because it's been so like created for someone else, that they don't feel like they really have a culture without the performance side of it. So crafts only exist like for sale. Materials can be cheaply produced, often imported as well. And then they just make it like to sell to tourists and to give them a little piece of like the Caribbean to take home or something like that. But you haven't like really
made in China.
Yeah, seriously. We haven't really had like a cultural experience, and now people are in the Caribbean just feel like they don't have a culture because it's been performance for so long.
Yeah, it's been commodified, and that's what we talk about on this podcast all the time, that commodifying anything instantly ruins it.
Yeah, facts. Instantly. Yep. So the hope right now is mainly for ecotourism to kind of start to take off. But there's a lot of people who don't really like the ecotourism thing, because as eco-friendly as you try to make it, it still is pollution. Air travel is pollution. Yeah. And like the point of these ecotourism places is that you go into this place that's like untouched, and it's in the mountain, and you're seeing a different side of the Caribbean than the beach and the sea and stuff. But the problem is that these places, you're disrupting nature. You know, these places, they've never had car gas emissions, and like you don't know how your presence is disrupting the native species or the native animals or anything
like, you know what, those places still have to get you food, water, and sewage disposal. If you're going to these untouched places, they're going to have to develop these places to house you. So I think a lot of it is performative. It's kind of like the volunteer trips.
Oh yeah,
they fly you pay a lot of money to an organization, and that organization flies you out to like volunteer for a couple of hours instead of just donating your money, employing local people. Instead
they employ like students for volunteer hours.
Yeah, it's just
And then
performative to get people to
probably
pay money
don't
and
even use
feel
the
good
school.
about it.
Yeah. Yup. I know it's a sad situation. Like it seems kind of hopeless a little bit. So some of the places are trying to turn it around. Trinidad and Tobago have reduced the land that tourism can take to only 10%.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's getting there, but Trinidad and Tobago is such a small island. Like 10% is still like a pretty solid chunk, but like I understand like they need to make it a little bit more sustainable. Some of the resorts or some of the countries are changing their slogans to like the way the Caribbean used to be, to discourage tourism into resorts and to kind of encourage different types of mass tourism, since they've pretty much accepted that mass tourism isn't going to go away, but they just need to be able to like handle it a little bit better and to not destroy the thing that made it so attractive to tourists in the first place. So the ecotourism, like I don't know if I could call it a phase or like a fad or like just this word ecotourism. It doesn't really have a solid definition.
No.
And it is a very fluid definition. And there's like a couple different types of ecotourism where it's like soft ecotourism and then like hardcore ecotourism. And it can really vary from just trying your best to recycle to...
We have a recycling bin.
Ecotourism. Exactly. Eco. To like living in the middle of the mountains and like seeing a different part of the country that you normally would. So it's so easy to say you're doing ecotourism, but really you're just doing the bare minimum, or you're not even doing it at all.
Yeah.
You're just lying about it.
Yeah, it's just a buzzword.
Exactly. Like that greenifying thing that people are doing. And it's like, yeah, this is a green product. But greenwashing. But it's pretty much just not. So, yeah, if you ever feel weird about going to an all-inclusive, your feelings are justified.
You should.
It is weird. You should feel weird about it. If you don't feel weird about it, I hope you do now. I think you need to be woke about this shit. Don't live in ignorance like I was. And yeah, just kind of like looking towards the future, I guess. We've talked about this in class a little bit, like what are some ideas that we might have for different types of industries that could happen in the Caribbean. And like most people in the class agree that agriculture is the way to go, and that the governments should invest in environmental education for people who are like growing up, for the next generation of people who are going to be living there and needing to live there. And yeah, agriculture is still possible, but the problem is that there's this like myth that you need to be modernized. And then if you're modernized, and if you're like on the internet, and if you're like doing tech, and if you have a big city with tall buildings, then you're winning. And that is peak success for a country. And it's a myth. I said it was a myth, and it is a myth. Both can exist in one place. Yeah. And agriculture is still just as strong as like technology or some fucking bullshit that we're doing over here.
And honestly, will probably be more sustainable for the long term. Like I see tech easily falling, you know, and other things, or being not as profitable, but like growing food.
That's we're always going to need food.
Yeah.
Exactly. It could be such a good way to like just bring the economy back, and like even starting small. I just wish someone could forgive debt. Like it's so stupid how they're just in debt and now they're just dug in this deep hole. It's like, just they're never going to pay the money back. So just why are you holding this over their head? Like it's just this power struggle, this power dynamic between the two countries that it's just like they're just doing it to keep them under their thumb, I guess is the word. So anything in the end to not be reliant on foreign powers anymore and foreign investors anymore is a good direction to go. And if you are planning to go to an all-inclusive, remember to tip.
Yes.
Pretty much they're not going to see any of that $1,000 that you paid to get into the resort. So your money, your cash money, your cold hard cash is the best that you can do to help. Yeah. Otherwise, I think they need to, I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was this week's little talk, little opinion, I guess. I don't know, just enlightenment. Yeah.
Gotta have them sometimes.
Yeah,
Life
exactly.
isn't all rosy.
Unfortunately.
Thank you, Lydia.
No problem.
Thank you for that talk. I feel like it's an important talk to have, especially as COVID starts to wind down. That was me knocking on wood, if you heard that in your audio, because every time it does wind down, it ramps back up again. But it seems like it is kind of winding down and more people are traveling now. And yeah, so I think it's an important thing to have on the mind as you're traveling, planning travel. Maybe there's a better way for you to plan the travel.
Yeah. Hotel, local, do like, get food at local places.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be an all-inclusive. I know all-inclusives are so easy, though. That's the thing, is that you don't have to think. You don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, that's
just
true.
Go. You don't have to plan or anything. But yeah, maybe not the best. Yeah. Definitely not the best. And then ecotourism isn't even that good. Like, god damn it. There's just yeah. What's the point of being aware of problems if there's no solutions?
I don't have answers to that. I don't know. In theory, I think it's supposed to make you a better person.
Oh, interesting. So I'm just learning about all this garbage, about this sad stuff to be a better person. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, yeah, that's it for me. I'm going to pass it on to Courtney.
Welcome, guys, to the second half of the podcast.
Hello.
Yeah, we're going to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted. Yay! Less important, but more lighthearted.
Okay, gotcha.
This week, I'm talking about the curse of MacBeth. And I almost feel like I'm jinxing myself a little bit by saying MacBeth in like this setting, but fingers crossed, we'll see how it goes. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, there is a superstition in theater that neither the name of the play Macbeth or any of the quotes of the play can be said by any of like the actors in a Macbeth production outside of the rehearsals. So you can say it when you're in the play, when you're in the scene. But if you're not in the scene, you can't say it. And
that's
then,
so cool.
Additionally, there's also a superstition that, like, if you're in any theater, you can't say it. So if you're in the audience of a theater, you're not supposed to say it. And basically, if you break this rule, terrible things will happen to you. Not happen to you, but happen to the cast, basically, of Macbeth. So first we're going to try to see where this came from. No one's really 100% sure where this superstition came from, but there are theories. So there is this lady, Dr. Anna Chuhan, of the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust. And she said that it's highly likely that Shakespeare gathered inspiration for his plays from real things that were happening in his life and from real events that he saw, which makes sense. That's usually what happens. That's inspiration.
Usually how art goes, yeah.
Yeah. So people believe that it is highly likely that he probably came into contact with some witches.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah. And so the theory is basically that the opening scene of Macbeth is, I think it's 3 witches, and they're sitting around and they're saying a curse. And the theory is that this curse is actually a real curse, and it has cursed the play.
Oh, that's sick. That's so sick. So every time you like read the script for the first time, you're putting the curse on the entire cast.
Yeah, and basically just Macbeth as a whole is cursed because of this real thing. And
that's so cool.
Kind of further supporting this theory is that Shakespeare wrote all of his plays using the pentameter, which is like the
the iambic pentameter.
Yeah, that. And the witchy verse is the only verse in all of his works that uses a tetrameter and not the pentameter. So it's this one verse is completely different from anything else he's ever written. Wow. So people think that the verse was either written by actual witches, that he like hired actual witches to write it, or that he wrote down an actual curse, that he knew a curse and he wrote it down.
That's so fucking cool.
Yeah, and so Some people believe the first theory that witches wrote it, and the people who believe the second theory that he wrote a curse believes that when witches heard the play, they got really angry that he like basically outed one of their curses or one of their spells, I guess, and they placed a curse on the play.
They cursed the curse that was a real curse.
I guess so. Yeah, pretty much. Thank you. Cool. Great summary.
Thank you. I get it. I follow.
And on top of this, people in the 1600s did not have much education, and science was kind of chugging along at this point, but many things in life were still unexplained, and life was just kind of generally tough. So a lot of people did believe in magic, and so consequently also believe in black magic. And apparently the opening scene of this play actually used to really scare people when they used to play it in theaters because like the belief in magic was so strong. They thought it was real witches doing a real curse.
Wow,
and
that's so cool. He was so groundbreaking, like to do that to the people. That's crazy. I'm surprised he wasn't accused of being a witch.
Okay, so this is kind of where it gets interesting. He's not accused of being a witch, but he wrote the play because he was trying to impress King James I, who was Scottish and who was also an expert in witchcraft. I don't know how you become an expert in witchcraft without being a witch. That seems fishy to me, but apparently he was an expert in it.
He's like, no, I just study it. I don't practice it.
Yeah, it's just fun. I just like to, read
funny.
about it.
That's like me. I'm like, no, I just know everything about horoscopes, but like, I don't believe
I don't believe horoscopes. I'm not one of those girls.
I know, I'm never.
So he wrote it trying to impress King James. And then after he put on the play for the first time and King James saw it, King James proceeded to immediately ban the play for 5 years. The play did not be put on for another 5 years because King James was like, that is batshit crazy that there is a spell in that play. Immediately no.
Immediately no.
So it kind of backfired on Shakespeare a little bit.
Definitely.
And there's another like fringe theory that is completely aside from magic, is that Macbeth was such a popular name way back when, and so many theaters were like putting it on, and it was attracting a lot of audiences, that often poor and struggling theaters would put on Macbeth in hopes of bringing in a lot of audiences. And so there was like a high correlation between theaters putting on Macbeth and then going out of business.
Oh,
so people thought it was cursed for that. So that's kind of
really
like
it was
another
just popular. Cool.
Yeah. And then so what happens if you say Macbeth by accident? It happens. It might slip out. There is a cleansing ritual that you can do.
Really?
Say Macbeth by accident.
Yay!
And this is actually like still practiced today by
believe
actors in theater.
Yeah,
they're so
superstitious.
Yeah. So if an actor says Macbeth in a no instance, basically they have to do the cleansing ritual. So there's a couple of variations. One of them is just spinning 3 times. Oh, sorry. Before they do the ritual, they have to leave. They
have to get out of the theater.
They get out. They don't get out of the theater. They just leave the rehearsal area, maybe like go backstage or, just out of the area, be by themselves. They have to either turn 3 times, spit over their left shoulder, swear, or recite a line from another one of Shakespeare's plays. And then they can only come back once they are invited back by the cast. The cast has to invite them back in. They have to say, yes, we trust you. You've done the cleansing ritual. You may come back in.
That's so sick.
Yes. And in more elaborate iterations of the ritual, they do ask you to leave the premise. You have to completely evacuate the theater, go outside. And in those instances, you have to spin around, brush yourself off, and say Macbeth 3 times. And some theater companies will completely kick you out and not let you back in until they say. And they actually punish frequent offenders by leaving them outside for long periods of time. They're like, you can't come back.
They're like, how many fucking
Think
times
about
does
what
this
you
need to happen before you learn your lesson? Yeah,
Come on,
time
Tiffany.
out. That's so funny.
And yes, of course, you have to be invited back in once you do your cleansing ritual. So
if
now
they forget about you, you're like, I'm still out here.
Hello?
I was just a supporting role, but still. I need to be in rehearsals.
So now we're going to go over some stories of bad stuff that has happened to people because of the curse.
Oh my god, okay.
And now it's important to note before we go into the bad stories of things that have happened that this is one of the most popular Shakespeare plays. It's one of the longest, and it has like the most action and fighting out of all his plays. So statistically, it is the most likely play for incidents to occur in. So just important to remember. Some people think that it just might be difficult to perform, and that is why. But magic.
Magic. I'm a magic believer.
In 1937, the theater manager of a Macbeth production had a heart attack, and she died the night of the dress rehearsal.
Whoa.
In the same night, a falling stage weight just missed landing on the star, who was Laurence Olivier. Olivier? It's probably
That's so scary.
a French name that I'm supposed to pronounce better, but I didn't. And then also in the same night, the director and the actress playing Lady Macbeth were in a car accident. So these somebody died, somebody almost died, and 2 more people almost died.
But I thought if it was in rehearsals, it's okay. Like, why are people who are putting on the Macbeth play
That's
getting
who the bad
punished?
fortune comes to.
Only people who put on Macbeth, and not people who...
It's the cast. It's you put a curse on the cast, and if it's said by somebody in the theater, it puts a curse on the cast, and if it's said by somebody in the cast, it puts a curse on the cast. And so any one of these people that were in the cast could have said, you know, Macbeth while they were at home, or...
Oh, okay.
You know. That's the theory, that somebody in this cast or somebody in the theater said Macbeth.
Crazy. You are not safe at all when you're putting on this show.
No.
So it could literally just be even like an audience member that comes in and is like, I'm going to see Macbeth. I'm so excited to see this show. And then they put a curse on the cast unknowingly.
Mm-hmm. It's risky business.
What?
Putting on a Macbeth play is risky.
Wow. Holy shit.
Oh, on top of that, okay, there's more actually to this one play. It doesn't end there. So, as a reminder, in one night, 1 lady died, stage weight almost fell on the star, and then 2 other people were in a car accident on the same night. And they were like, this is crazy. They postponed the opening of the play. Very rational decision to make at that point. And then when they finally did open, the portrait of the theater manager who had died fell off the theater wall. And during one of the fights, they were using real weapons. One flew into the audience and scared an audience member so much that he had a heart attack.
Oh, baby.
So
damn.
just a series of unfortunate events for that production.
Seriously. That's so crazy. I wonder which one of them like was responsible for the curse, or like who walked in and
that person's
was just
probably like
yeah.
Oh no.
I hope after that first night they all performed the cleansing ritual. Like, that would have been the smart thing to do. But I guess if it's not the person who placed the curse, then the cleansing ritual doesn't work, right?
I don't think so. I think it has to be the person who said it.
Wow. So it could have just been like a fucking person delivering the mail or something. And he's like, hey, I have your Macbeth programs ready to go. And they're like, okay, thanks, bye. And he left. No idea.
Doom.
No idea. Wow, that's crazy.
So in another instance, in 1942, in a production put on by Piccadilly Theatres, 3 actors actually died. So 2 of the witches and King Duncan all died.
Whoa.
One of them died right on stage, and then the costume designer later committed suicide.
Oh my fucking god.
So
wow, putting on this show is life or death.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
In 1947, an actor named Harold Norman was mortally wounded during a stage fight during Macbeth, and he died 3 weeks later in hospital.
Oh my god, that's so messed up.
In the 1960s, this one's kind of crazy. This one doesn't actually affect the cast, which is horrible and cool. And so there was a company that was touring Macbeth in South Africa, and they were unloading their set with like a crane thing. and a passerby came by and he asked what the show was. And the unloading guy said Macbeth. They were outside of the theater, but the loading guy said Macbeth. And the second he said Macbeth, a spear fell from the crane and went through the person who asked the question.
What the fuck?
Isn't that spooky ooks?
That's so spooky. I'm getting goosebumps. That's literally so scary. Oh my god, can you imagine? Oh my god, that'd be so traumatizing. Like, obviously for the person who died, scary, but for the person who had to just stand there and be like, Macbeth, and then the person is just like impaled right in front of him. Shit. That's fucking horrifying.
Crampskis.
I wonder if he blames himself.
My bad. That was my bad.
It's a Shakespeare play.
Yeah.
They need to come up with a code
There is
word.
a name for it. So the name that they call it to avoid saying it is the Scottish play, because that references its location. And then apparently in British Sign Language, Macbeth and Scotland have the same sign. It's the same thing. So it's the same word for both of them. So they call it the Scottish play.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can say like the Scottish play, but if you even still quote anything from the Scottish play, you're still okay. What? Jesus Christ.
Be real careful. All right, so in 1964, a fire burned down the Maria II Theater while Macbeth was on. In 1988, this one's very dramatic, a Bulgarian singer by the name of Bancho Benchevsky committed suicide during a nationally broadcasted matinee of Macbeth.
What?
He threw himself backwards from a balcony railing during the play.
What? Why?
I don't know.
That's so fucking insane. Oh my god. The curse really messes with you.
Yeah.
It was the witches who pushed him.
Spooky ooks. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe. During the filming of Hereditary, so this one's kind of recent.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that really messed up movie.
Yeah, that movie was fucked.
The writer and director, the same person. He wrote and directed the movie. He's like...
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Thank you. And so he was told by somebody on set not to say Macbeth, and he thought they were just kind of joking around. He was like, ooh, Macbeth. So he said it, and then the very next scene that they filmed, one of their lights just like exploded.
Whoa.
No one died, no one got hurt, but kind of
but
just
the
like
curse is alive. It's cool that it happened on a different set too. Like, it wasn't a Macbeth set. It was a different sort of thing. So that's nice. Wow, it lives on.
Yeah. In 1849, we're going back in time a little bit here. In 1849, there was a really famous actor called William Macready, almost like Macbeth, which I think is kind of cool.
Wow.
Who was touring a production of Macbeth across the states, and he had an actor rival. I didn't know that this happened, but he had an actor rival who was starring in a different Macbeth.
Wow.
But they're starring at the same time. And so when Macready went to perform in New York, his rival's fans, so his rival was Edwin Forrest, and Edwin Forrest fans showed up at Macready's show.
Oh my god.
And a riot happened between the fans in the audience.
My god.
And it was already heavily policed because the police kind of thought something was going to happen. Tensions were rising, you know. And so when the riot started, a soldier fired into the crowd and killed 20 people.
What? Holy fucking crap, dude.
Yeah.
That's so insane. Insane in the membrane. Insane in the brain. This shit's crazy.
So this one is a story from David Bellwood, who is a manager at Shakespeare's Globe, the famous theater in England, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And so one day while he was on tour for a different play, it wasn't Macbeth, but it was a different play, he was sad because one of his friends had passed away. And so one of his other friends brought him a book to cheer him up, and the book was The Complete Works of Shakespeare. So it had all of Shakespeare's plays in it. And while looking at it, one of their other friends just casually said, "Oh, hey, I studied Macbeth while I was at school." And he was like, "Oh, don't
What have you
say
done?"
Macbeth. You know? And she just kind of laughed it off. She was like, whatever, it's a superstition. And in the show that night, 2 of the violinist's strings snapped spontaneously.
Whoa.
One woman fell off the stage, and another dancer danced straight into a wall and knocked himself unconscious.
Oh, no.
And then David Bellwood was like, "Never say Macbeth again," to his friend.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she never said it again. I think she learned her lesson.
Holy shit, dude. Yeah, that's a curse. That is a curse.
Yep.
That shit just doesn't happen. Oh my god.
Yeah. And so the most famous, I guess, curse situation, unfortunate event, was the first ever performance of Macbeth, where the actor playing Lady Macbeth died shortly before his first performance. And this is probably where the legend or myth began. But this is very interesting because apparently this was actually made up. So there was our cartoonist who was called Max Beerbohm, who was annoyed about the hype around Macbeth. He was like, I can't open a newspaper without seeing Macbeth, you know? He was just fed up with it. So he made up a story and he called it Bardology. And he put it in the newspaper about this actor dying right before the show, and everyone believed it. But it was actually made up. And a lot of people believe that this instance is where the legend came from, but it's actually a made-up legend.
Wow. What the fuck? Huh. Well, then I guess I don't believe the legend if it's just made up. I'm on the witch's side.
And so, yeah, this is basically kind of how it all started. And a lot of people say that, like, with this superstition being around, people tend to pay more attention to Macbeth, which is probably why so many people believe in the legend, because if something bad happens during a Macbeth production, everyone's like, ooh, it's the curse. If something bad happens in another production, people are like, meh, that sucks, something bad happened. So it's kind of like people are looking for that correlation anyways.
Okay.
So that might be why. And it's been put on for 400 years?
I think so.
16. Yeah. It's been put on for like 400 years. So there is, a high likelihood that some bad things have happened during that time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And additionally, on
show
top of
must
this,
go wrong.
Actors can be so superstitious.
Yeah.
They really want luck on their side. They really want to make sure their shows go well. And like acting is kind of a high pressure situation. So it's kind of one of those things that it's better to believe it and be wrong than not to believe it and be wrong. So it's why not be on the safe side and not say Macbeth and do my cleansing ritual just to make sure that I don't die?
Yes.
Seems fair enough.
Yeah, I get it. I would keep that going too.
Same.
I totally understand. Like, yeah, better safe than sorry every time, of course. Holy shit.
So people have just come up with like fun little nicknames for Macbeth. So the Scottish play, some people call it like McBee or like I don't know.
McDonald's.
So yeah, and Lady Macbeth is called like Lady Scotland, or so they kind of replace like everyone's names, which would be really confusing for me if I was acting, because I feel like I would start mixing up the names. But
yeah, possibly you would probably have to like memorize it though.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you're on stage one night and instead of saying Lady Macbeth, you're like Lady Scotland? And I was like, I mean Macbeth.
Yeah, I feel like that would happen to me.
Yeah.
And I would blame it on the curse if that did happen.
Yes.
I feel like that wasn't me. That was
just
Patricia.
another instance of the curse.
Yeah.
It was just Patricia's fault. She didn't do the cleansing.
It's my little talk.
That's so cool.
Not too much of an opinion, but just like fun little stories for people who aren't in theater, who did not know.
Now you know. Macbeth. And if you don't know, now you know.
Now you know.
And now you are wiser. And now when you go into a theater for the first time, you know not to make stupid rookie mistakes.
Don't
like
say
saying
Macbeth. You're going to be kicked out, or someone's going to die, and you're going to know it's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. You have to play by these rules now. maybe part of it is just being aware of the superstition. That like really adds to the superstition.
Yeah,
like
if you're like
if you're
nervous,
looking for it.
Yeah. If you're in the cast and someone's like, somebody said MacBeth earlier today, you're going to be like, oh my God. And maybe it's more likely for an accident to happen if you're already like, I think an accident's going to happen. You're manifesting the accident.
Exactly. Yeah.
Manifestation, everyone.
Yeah. And if actors have like no idea, like maybe someday, 50 years from now, they'll just have no idea about the MacBeth curse. Like maybe it won't get passed down for some sad reason and it'll die. Maybe we're the only ones giving it power, the believers.
Yes, it'll be immortalized through our podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about that a lot. I'm like, what is going to happen in like 20 years when we come back to this podcast and like the world is just a completely different place? Right? Yeah,
or if like the
crazy.
world ends and our podcast is like one of the only things to make it.
Yeah,
are gonna be like, what was going on back there?
Remember when we were talking about like what would happen if our podcast made it to Mars and it was like the only thing the aliens like had to find out what Earth was like?
I think it's a pretty accurate representation.
Yeah, me
personally.
too.
I think we talk about really important topics.
Thought-provoking.
They would know about capitalism. They'd be like, fuck that capitalism shit.
Yeah, exactly. They'd know to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, they'd be like, ooh, labor bad. Go to beach.
2 hours of work a day. Max. Beach. Yeah, go to beach. Like, I've never heard of this. Beach. But it sounds lovely. It is.
It is. Might be imported, but it is lovely.
Yeah. But it is. Oh, man. And that's the issue. People keep going back. Because they're like, this shit is so nice. It's so cool. And it is.
I also heard that they, like, we're totally backtracking to Lydia's opinion here now.
It's okay.
I also
it's just a weird kind of energy podcast today.
That they have to like wake up really early to clean all the garbage off the beaches before the tourists wake up, because the tourists like expect it to be pristine, but that's not the reality of the world that we live in. There's lots of garbage that washes up on shore of beaches, and so they wake up in the morning and they clean it all.
Wow.
Before anyone wakes up to see it.
That's so sad. And then they just dump it deeper into the middle of the ocean somewhere. So it'll be washed up later. Yeah. Wow. Holy shit. So sad. It's just an endless cycle of sad.
Yep.
MacBeth.
All right. Should I conclude this?
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. Thank you for listening to Lydia's very important little chat about all-inclusives and how we all need to think about our actions.
Yeah.
Sit in the corner and think about what you did. And thank you for listening to my little talk about the curse of MacBeth. I hope you learned. I hope you learned. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you're a little bit more prepared now to going to see theater shows, because you should do it because it's fun. But now you know what not to do in a theater.
How to have a good
you're
show.
not supposed to whistle. I read that somewhere. Just thought you guys should.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know.
Sure.
And if you want to let us know what you think, you can head over to our Instagram, which is very.unimportant.people. You can find us on Twitter, @unimportantppl. You can email us, hatersclickhere@gmail.com, and that's HATRS, clickhere@gmail.com. We are on TikTok.
Yeah, buddy.
It's my favorite one of our platforms, so you should definitely find us on there. And also, check out our Patreon.
Yay, our Patreon.
It's still there.
Yes, it is.
So to do that, you can head over to our Instagram, check out our bio, click on our link tree, click the big button that says Patreon. Patreon. That's what you do.
We will love you forever.
You'll be there. And that's it for us this week. I hope you have a great